David's Bridal, where brides and bridesmaids get fabulously dressed. We let our friends pick out what we wear, show off our dance moves, obsess over every little detail, hold your hand through it all, smile bravely when it's time to let go. Make your dreams come true. The things we do for love. Only at David's Bridal.
Expanding reality.
Christian Yordanov, welcome to the show, man. You are a dear friend. You had me on your incredible show, Connecting Minds, which will be, of course, located down in the show notes, my friend. You look and sound better than ever. You and I have been hanging out here, having a great time. So I figured we'd let the audience in on it. How are you today, my friend?
Brendan, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. This is such a special occasion for me that I did my hair good and I wore 2 colognes for you.
The 2 colognes. Thank you, Christian. Because it's an audio medium, brother. I mean, no one's gonna know that you're wearing 2 colognes, but I love it anyway. I'm grateful for the ridiculousness. Thank you, brother. Welcome. For my audience that's not too familiar with you, if you don't mind, all the ways, of course, located down in the show notes to find him. But audio-wise, here for my audience, it's not too familiar with you. If you don't mind, let us know who you are, brother.
I am a simple boy from the village. That I'm from Bulgaria originally. I've lived abroad most of my life, or at least 2/3 of my life. I've been in, here and there, Ireland, South Africa. I've lived in Spain. I'm in Portugal now for the last 5 years. And I am one of those people that have a ton of different interests. I guess I must be like you. Actually, I'd love to find out your birth date later. I'd love to read. I have this amazing book about the secret language of birthdays. And it's uncannily, what's written about my birthday is uncanny. The guy might as well have been spying on me for the last 37 years to write that freaking 2-pager on my birthday. But so I feel like that's why we connect so well, is a lot of varied interests. And one of my big interests is health. And sort of some of my more recent projects is 3 years ago in 2020, I published a book on autism that I've been researching since 2018. So that's one thing that I like to talk about is my research into autism, children's health. And, these are some of the biggest interests that I have, but I have a number of, I love, from my podcast, people will see, and just like yourself, and I'll have a ton of different varied interests, from esoteric stuff, conspiracies, psychedelics, psychology, philosophy. And I love the fact that my wife, she's gotten used to me now, where every 3 months there's a new hobby. I have a new hobby, and she's like, "Oh my God, what will it be next?" She's always like, "I wonder what to like." But at this point, the anxiety factor has been taken out. So she's like, very early on, even like almost 5 years. We're together like 7 years next week, and like 5 years ago already, she was like, "I don't think I will ever be bored with you."
No.
So that's a little bit about me.
That's perfect. And congratulations on your successful relationship.
Thank
7
you,
is the year that my wife and I's relationship changed. Now, is that together 7 or married 7?
Together 7.
Got you.
2 years married soon.
Got you. Okay, it was 7 years married that ours really took kind of an interesting turn. And that's a real benchmark for marriages. So we'll talk about it when you hit that mark, which you will successfully. Just y'all will dance by together.
And how long are you together?
We will be married just here in a couple of months. We'll have been married 9 years.
Wow.
We've been together 13. Yeah.
Wow, bro.
Yeah, but
amazing.
at the 7-year marriage mark is a big one. And we started looking at other, finding that phenomena in other couples as well. It's like 5, like 1 is huge, and then 3 is huge, 5 is huge, and 7 is really huge.
Love that.
Yeah. And it's just really interesting benchmarks where you just really kind of shed these layers and you either submit to the process or you really, really thrive together. And so it's just this really interesting thing that we found. But back to you, my friend. Yes, autism, a well-being plan, how to get your child healthy, as well as your podcast, Connecting Minds, and Autism and Children's Health will be located down in the show notes, dude. my wife and I listened to your show on Tinfoil Hat, and I'd gone on your show before we'd listened to that, and my wife was asking, she was like, "Whose show were you just on?" When we had gone out, and I'd shown her, and so we listened to your episode on Tinfoil Hat, and dude, just what you talk about and the way that you present health and the reverence that you have for other folks' empowerment towards their children's and their own health is what I'm so impressed with this. And we are going to get into some freaky woo-woo stuff as well. But I'd like for you to talk to us, if you don't mind, about the hidden health problems. I call them opportunities in disguise, but some of the autism hidden opportunities in disguise as far as the health industry goes.
You mean in general or for autism?
Yeah, for autism.
For autism. Yeah. So actually, when I was doing my functional diagnostic nutrition course, the guy that started the functional diagnostic nutrition, very, very awesome guy. I've had him on my podcast. He actually, that's how he frames when you run a lab test. Let's say you do a urine test, and you discover some type of what let's say a researcher might call an abnormality, or an aberrant something or other. He would call them, those are excuse me, those are opportunities to improve health. And this is how we like to frame things, right? So opportunity. So you to just to kind of step back a little bit. So from my research into autism, right, what's very and I in my book, in basically on the first page of the introduction, I cite I think 22 or 23 papers where I basically tell you, if you're as a parent, if you suspect your child is on the spectrum or they have been diagnosed with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, it is very likely that they have one or more hidden underlying health challenges, aka something that you can find or uncover and address with the help of your practitioner, ideally. And these health challenges or opportunities to improve health include things around the microbiota. A lot of these kids have, bacteria and yeast that shouldn't necessarily be there or in such large numbers. They have some immune dysregulation, food sensitivities, which goes hand in hand with gut stuff and immune dysregulation, accumulation of toxic metals and chemicals, sort of decreased capacity to detoxify foreign compounds like that, and so on and so forth, nutrient deficiencies. And I love how you frame it, is because these are opportunities for the parent. Once this isn't too complex, right? The book is 300 pages long, and it could have been easily double that. But at the crux of it, it's 3 or 4 things you need to do. So you run 3 or 4 tests as a parent with the help of your doctor or practitioner, whatever practitioner you're working with, and we just analyze the person's metabolism. And this goes for any person that may not be currently in an optimal state of health, or someone that are doing okay, they think, but they want to be better, or they want to thrive better, or they want to age slower, or they want to increase athletic performance or increase mental performance. Let's say they're an author, performer of some kind, actor, and it's always the same things. They just express themselves in different ways in different people. And if you have enough, let's say, imbalances that accumulate, over the entire metabolism over a long enough period of time, that can cause some type of dysfunction, which can lead to symptoms, be they psychological, behavioral, or physical. So with autism, what I like to do normally is, when I start working with a client and their kid is, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years old or 7 years old, whatever, we run a couple of tests and we assess metabolic function. So we look at, certain B vitamin status, antioxidant status. We look at gut, signs for gut dysbiosis. We look at, depending on the resources available, we can run some hair testing and now some urine testing to assess, is there too much chemical exposure, chemical toxicity? Is there heavy metals, being excreted in the hair? And sometimes we do a gut a stool test to assess if there are pathogens, bacteria, parasites, etc., etc. And with that, the parent now, and with a little bit of education from the practitioner, in this case myself, with a bit of education from the practitioner and support, the parent now is empowered to, improve the child's diet, which is, a huge piece of the puzzle. Get some high quality supplements to support the child in rebalancing these things, be that, improving antioxidant status, improving nutrient status of vitamins, minerals, etc. Coaxing out the bad bacteria, let's quote unquote, or the pathogenic bacteria or the opportunistic bacteria. A lot of these are not necessarily bad, but they're opportunistic. So if you have an imbalance in the gut, they will overwhelm the good microbiota. So with a little bit of herbal support, some probiotics, a little bit of lifestyle interventions, I think that these are super important. Adding a shower filter so you don't get chlorine on the skin and inhaled when your child is bathing. Getting a reverse osmosis system to make the water more pristine. Obviously, organic food, I already mentioned, diet is a huge aspect. So reducing the toxins coming in through the diet. And then, of course, the vitamins, minerals, so we improve. Basically, the point of this whole sort of program is to remove the impediments to the child's development. So when a child is born, I love to talk about how when a child is born, the vital force is just radiating out of this child. And it takes a lot, like we're actually very resilient as humans, right? It takes a lot to get somebody to, develop overt symptoms and disease. So a child with, unfortunately, the world is a little bit polluted, in case folks haven't noticed. So these kids, even though they're under tremendous, stress physiologically, they're still able to grow, develop, and develop cognitively and physically. But some kids, as we can see, the process is slowed down because of nutrient deficiencies, gut imbalances, immune aberrations, and so on and so forth. So if we remove these impediments, these are the opportunities that we're talking about. These are opportunities to uncover, identify hidden impediments to health. And we are now the opportunities to, fix the little issues here and there, remove those impediments. Now the child is allowed to thrive as much as possible, as much as their genetic potential will allow. And this is, again, I've worked with people from the age of 2 to the age of 72. And with an adult, with someone with gut dysfunction, with someone like again that just wants to be a better programmer, the factors that impede our thriving and optimal health are pretty much the same across the board. It's about identifying what that person's particular set of circumstances are, what their healing opportunities are, and then again, you're teaching the person or the parent how to do it themselves, or to help their child do it. We're not like practitioners of our kind. We're actually educators, and I think this is wherein lies the secret to improving the state of things, the state of the health of the general population. Is literally it's educating young kids, parents to be, new parents, anybody that with the eyes to see and the ears to hear. If we can educate folks, no matter what part of the journey they're on, we now have an opportunity for that person to basically change like you like to say sometimes, step into a new timeline. So imagine you get a 26-year-old couple, and we teach them about healthy eating, a little bit of supplementation, how to prepare better for pregnancy. We now have equipped these folks to have a healthier child, make sure that child stays healthy, educate that child how to continue to stay healthy when it's out of the nest, and so on and so forth with their kids, grandkids. And that's now we are laying the foundations for transgenerational health.
Yeah, dude. And the way that you do this, the thoughtfulness and mindfulness that you have in this entire approach top down has been so remarkable, man. What would you say the feedback has been for some folks that you have taken from this process through to birth? Have you been able to introduce this to anyone from there and then followed up?
Well, I've kind of the last 2 years I've been mostly working with this in my family because my wife and I she got pregnant in 2021. So that was my biggest sort of project since there. At the moment, I'm kind of getting really deep into the genetics of sort of preconception and pregnancy stuff. So there's a number of different. We've gotten quite far with the genetic side of things. So I'm planning to create a course with my wife to basically educate. It's going to be around pregnancy preparation and recovery, right? But I've not actually worked too closely with like a woman before birth. I've helped with quite a few women recover from like a second pregnancy and so on and so forth. But this process is a little bit I can run onto some ladies that may want to consider getting pregnant soon. So yeah, it's kind of this particular aspect is a work in progress.
It's fascinating too, the mindfulness, again, the mindfulness approach. So with this, the health benefits, there's a psychological component to this as well. And I'm grateful that you mentioned the epigenetics, which I want to come back to. But what about the psychological component with this, with the mindfulness of that, dis-ease is literally just, mental dis-ease found manifest in the body. What are your thoughts on something like that?
Well, this is huge, bro. And just like to be perfectly honest, I learned a lot of this stuff while my wife was pregnant. I made a lot of mistakes on this side of things. So in terms of physiological health, in terms of all this, the supplement, I tell you, very few women on planet Earth ate as well and had a supplementation program as good as my wife did when she was pregnant. I guarantee you that. But I did make some mistakes in terms of what came out of my mouth, right? So it wouldn't be necessarily about like if I, let's say I was reading some research about this particular whatever health issue can cause XYZ birth outcome. I didn't say things like that. It was more about like I would read some news or some conspiracy. I was kind of deep into conspiracy research a little bit while she was pregnant, and I would just like share over. It was kind of during the COVID stuff. I would overshare things related to the COVID stuff, and she didn't like. Since I've since understood that she's a very sensitive person, and we both are very sensitive people. So something that I see that doesn't perturb me, I understand now that it does perturb her a lot more, even if she's not pregnant, but when she's pregnant, even more so. So I made a mistake that, so it's super important, not just if a woman is pregnant, but this psychological stress is a huge thing, because if you sort of trace it back to, I love that there's a dude called Brendan Vermeer I've had on my podcast. He's a great sort of functional student of functional medicine and natural medicine. He's just genius level. And I love what he said one day when I was interviewing him. He said, thoughts create proteins. So when you have let's say some type of thought that's, let's say, quote unquote negative, or let's say something fearful, it creates a cascade of neurochemicals get created. So these neurochemicals sort of they go hand in hand with emotions that get expressed. So emotions, the feeling of an emotion, these are neurochemical cascades. So if you get scared or stressed, you have cortisol rises, adrenaline rises, norepinephrine, all these chemicals. So certain chemicals go up, others get suppressed. So there's kind of negative feedback loops and so on. So for example, if cortisol rises, and adrenaline rises, it sends signals to the body to start breaking down muscle tissue to create glucose, because what's the point? It's because that glucose now will be very handy if you have to fight, if you're have to run away or you're hunting an animal. So there's other things like certain minerals of magnesium, calcium, zinc. They start getting released. Like you can actually see that in hair tests of people that have been like in a shocking event. You can see like a very high excretion of certain, nutrient minerals, and so on and so forth. There's many cascades. And so in hindsight, obviously I would have kept my mouth shut about, and then now, like, we were actually, just quick little side story. I mentioned it to you last time we spoke. So we went to this very cool homeopath up here in the mountains in south of Portugal, and he has this bioresonance machine where he asks the question in his mind. You hold this kind of electrode, and he completes the circuit with another metal bit, and using his machine, he asks questions. And he gets the answer. The guy's 79 years old. His skin is perfect. Like, amazing guy, just amazing. And he knew things about us by questioning stuff about us through the machine and this bioresonance method that he just couldn't know otherwise. So he knew we were both very sensitive people. But when he spoke, when he was kind of analyzing my wife, he said that her aura is very open. And a couple of the chakras were out of balance. So when your aura is very open, from what I understood, what he said is, when your aura is very open, you're like a lot of influence. So you're open to other people's emotions. So she would, like, I would sometimes tell her, like, something happened to a friend, like, let's say someone's kid was sick, and she would feel it. So in hindsight, my wife would like feel things that, for me and you, it would be like benign. Just say, oh, like such and such, this dog died, and like, oh, that sucks, I'm sorry to hear that. But you wouldn't be so empathetic that she would feel the pain of the person. So again, in hindsight, had I known this, I guess 2 years ago, I would have just kept my mouth shut for about a lot of things. I would just literally be and now I do that. I'm like, I don't talk about negative things. And if she's in a little bit of kind of a negative sort of moment, I'm always, especially after I talk to you, I'm like always trying to alchemize it, always trying to be positive, and it is having a tremendous impact. So just to answer your question more sort of directly, yes, the psychosocial stress is a huge part of dis-ease and overt disease. And one thing, just a little, we can talk about this issue ad nauseum. So just to kind of wrap it up, is one thing that I like to, technique I like to introduce to my clients and friends and family as well, is if you've ever heard of EFT, which is known as emotional freedom technique, also known as tapping. So where you do like the setup statement, you tap your karate chop point, and then you bring up the emotion that's perturbing you, anger, frustration, whatever, and you frame it in the context of self-acceptance, and then you tap these 7 or 8 acupressure points or acupuncture points on the face and the torso. So you got your the bridge of the nose, the eyebrow, under the eye, and so on and so forth. People, if people are interested, Google Dawson Church basic EFT recipe, and it's like an 8-minute video. He'll explain how to do it, and you learn the technique in 10 minutes, and now you have a tool for life that you can teach to kids. And my wife was doing that, and anytime she's had stress, and even when I get pissed off and whatever, I use it, and I've given it to friends, or like when a relative dies or whatever. So, and my mom's with autistic kids especially. So what this does is it brings up the emotion, you expose to it, and then you frame it in a sort of self-acceptance context. So you're not feeling guilty that you have this emotion, and then tapping these points on the face and the torso. Basically, it sends a signal to the body that everything is okay. So this allows you to decouple the thought from the emotion, and you do that a few times, so you get a low score in terms of the intensity. And now you're able to think about an event or whatever thing that pissed you off or makes you sad or whatever. It even works for pain, PTSD, anxiety, depression. They've done tons of research on it, and now you're able to bring the thoughts up without necessarily triggering the emotion. So that's a little tip to handle that side of things, because you brought a great point up, Brandon. Is this, for some people, this they might be perfectly healthy, everything's dandy, but if you've got a lot of work stress or like a relative, like family stress, COVID that made a lot of people overtly sick, from the stress. So being able to manage stress with this technique and other techniques is extremely important.
Dude, you nailed it with this. And I not to put you on the spot, but do you want to run through one for anybody out here who's not familiar with EFT tapping? I'm a big fan of this. And so actually anybody that's in your car, if you're driving right now, just kind of pause this, note the timestamp and come back to it. Audio only audience, actually, if you want to participate in this with us, check the video version. It's linked right down in the show notes there. Come directly over to the video to this spot and let's do some EFT tapping, man, because I'm a big fan of this kind of stuff. And let's walk through folks one to get it actionable here. What do you think?
We could do that. I'm not an expert. I've only learned the basic one, but we can do that quickly. So your karate chop point is basically, if you were to do a karate chop point, like if you're going to hit a plank to break it, like a Shaolin guy or whatever. So your karate chop point there, you just tap it with your 4 fingers. So first you bring up an event that kind of annoyed you, or an emotion in the last kind of week or two that annoyed you or made you something that made you angry, and you're just trying to get that feeling. So let's say I just kind of think of why
don't we do a collective one? Let's do a collective one. COVID. Yeah. Okay. Just for all the stresses and everything that went through with COVID, for anybody who didn't take it like we did, for the way we took it, for the challenge, for all of that event, for everyone here, let's tap out that energy collectively for everyone and make this sort of a global manifestation, if you will. Now, I do have a question for you before we get started. Do you left hand tap on your right, or do you right hand tap on your left? Is that significant or important in any way?
From what I understand, it doesn't matter. Okay. I just use my dominant hand to tap, but you can do any side of the face or the torso.
Okay,
and
perfect.
Some guys do the crown chakra point up here. Dawson Church, the way the video that I just mentioned, he doesn't do that one. So here's the thing, just from what I understand, it's the benefit you get is from that particular tapping session is it may be only one of the points that is actually causing you the sort of the relief, but the exercise is so you cover all of them, just to kind of to take the guesswork out of it, which I wonder if this point is going to give me relief. No, you just do all of them. It takes 2 minutes, that kind of way. So it's one specific point, I think, or a subset of them that is actually providing the relief each and every time. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't actually matter too much how many times you tap either or on which side, as long as you kind of get the general sort of again, like I said, I'm not an expert, so I'm like waffling.
No, it's okay. We're learning together, because same thing with you. I've done this exercise. I've participated in it. There's several interpretations on this, which are totally fine. Let's give them ours. Let's give them yours. Just what you work through and run through. And we'll do this as a collective release for all of anything that's happened from 2020 till now in this current timeline, right?
Right. So how I would start is just think about, this from 2020, from the lockdowns, from the lies, the frustration, not being able to see loved ones, and these mandates and pushing things on people and not being able to travel, like whatever frustrations and anger or whatever, just try to sort of remember that. And as you do, think of a level of intensity of 0 to 10, 0 being no distress, no frustration, 10 being maximum distress or frustration or anger. Just try to remember that feeling, bring that feeling up, and as you do, tap the karate chop point and just say, put a name to the feeling. So even though I feel this anger, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then just repeat that a couple of times. Even though I feel this anger, as you keep tapping, even though I feel this anger, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I feel this anger, I deeply and completely accept myself. And now, as you tap the points, just repeat the phrase, this anger, and try to keep the feeling sort of in your chest or wherever you feel it, and so you tap the bridge of the nose, this anger, and then the side of the eyebrow, this anger. You tap about 7 times, then under the eye, this anger, and just try to amplify the feeling and just feel the feeling. And then under the nose, this anger, and then under the bottom teeth, just in the kind of up above the chin, this anger. and then the collarbone. You can do the collarbone with two sort of hands, and then under the armpit, this anger. And now you can repeat it more than once, but what Dawson Church, the way he kind of he will let you stop, breathe in and just kind of evaluate the feeling and think about or feel the feeling. Has it gone up in intensity? Is it the same? Has it gone down? And to be honest, I feel a little bit lighter in the chest area. That's where I was feeling a little bit of that. We didn't have time to bring it up fully and think of all the fuckery that happened and stuff, but I do feel lighter. And so what you can do now is, if you're not at a level that you wanted to, let's say you're a 4 and you want to bring it down, you do it again. So you can do the setup statement again and repeat it until you bring it down to like a 1 or a 2. And just as an aside, I was looking briefly at the research. I was doing a video for one of my courses now last week, and so the research, it has shown benefits for people with PTSD, veterans, people with trauma, the folks with depression, anxiety. I'm trying to remember all of them. There was a number of other things. They even did one study where they measured certain biomarkers, like cortisol went down, heart rate variability and heart coherence improved. And there was, I think, the blood systolic and diastolic blood pressure improved after, like people did, I think, like a 4-day workshop about EFT and stuff like this. So the research shows not only like relief from psychological type traumas and frustrations and whatever else, but I think it's a field, in this particular instance, the field of psychoneuroimmunology, where they study this in more depth. So it's got to do with how obviously psycho mind, neuro, obviously nervous system, psychoneuroimmunology, and there's psychoneuroendocrinoimmunology that has to do with the hormone system. So when you do something as simple as this, you are through the mind, through the nervous system, you're affecting, your hormones that gets released or suppressed or created more of, synthesized less, and that affects your immune system, because those hormones affect the immune system. Everything is like in the mind body, it's all like one thing. So it's a pretty amazing thing. There's a great little book, geez, now I forget the name of it, but Dawson Church is the guy. He's got tons of free resources. EFT Universe is the YouTube channel. So EFT, this is game changer, folks.
It really isn't, because it's a mindful, almost like acupuncture that you perform on yourself in a way to kind of purge out these feelings. And of course, this has been known for a long time that the body keeps the score, right? So you have these points in which these areas of energy build up. And whether you think this is freaky woo-woo or not, there are physiological things, again, actionable things that you can do where you can say, hey, I'm just, doing this physical, just sort of dance where I'm going through these points, and they're just, like I said, acupuncture points or anything else. You don't have to take it spiritual and woo-woo, but we all know that there's some deep, deep stuff going on there that you are really, really releasing and tapping into literally that energy to let it just kind of vent off. Think of it as like, it's kind of probably going to be gross, but energetically popping a pimple, you know what I mean? You're just like, and you get it out of you. You're just like, ugh. Now, some people are super into that. So some folks are just like, yes, that works great. So we've brought us through. Now, this is a great clean start that you've brought us through with the health of anyone that's beginning to get pregnant through the pregnancy phase. But what about folks that are already here? We have a bunch of babies and kids running around. We also have a bunch of adults running around that would like to probably change things for themselves for the better moving forward, given the slate that they were given. So what can we do as human beings already sort of exposed to all of these things and not been given the awesome start that the future kids will have been gotten because of you? So what about us? What about all of us out here just kind of kicking around?
Well, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit for most folks, I believe, Brandon. And it all starts with just at home, what we do on a daily basis. So lifestyle stuff and habits. And the most important things, and we just to make sure we're on the same page here. This is if someone, let's say, is reasonably healthy and wants to either get healthier or stay healthy, or has some kind of a health condition and wants to get into better health and as optimally healthy as possible, or someone that is very healthy and wants to, get that last 2, 3, 4 percentage points, and is some type of athlete or whatever else. So the principles are the same pretty much, with again slight little tweaks depending on the person. But the most important things, bro, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners will know this, because I know that's the kind of crowd you're attracting, is just awake people that are aware of what's up. And but just to summarize, we have to start with the food and the water. That's absolutely number one. Hey, you know what? Let me actually say it's not number one. The first thing is actually this is actually more interesting. The first thing that is even more important than your food and your water is your breathing, right? Now, a lot of people nowadays, we have this issue of chronic hyperventilation, as the medical term is, but what we just call it over breathing. So there's two components to over breathing. One is breathing at a too high rate, too many breaths per minute, and the other one is taking in too much air every time. So too much big breathing, big breaths, right? And this is actually not optimal breathing. And the third one is, some people have this issue, is mouth breathing some of the time, and some people all of the time. Obviously, not most people are not like that. That is a seriously pathological state of affairs. But mouth breathing is an extremely important thing to address, and this is extremely important in children, because obviously it's a habit that's a lifelong habit. Now, the reason mouth breathing is not good, just to break it down very simply, when you breathe through the mouth, you expel too much carbon dioxide, and that basically changes your blood pH. And when you have a lower, just to simplify it, oxygen, in order for oxygen to be released from the hemoglobin to your cells, there needs to be a certain concentration of carbon dioxide in the blood. Otherwise, that catalytic action can't happen. So when you breathe, let's say, to give you an example, let's say if anyone wants to try this, that's not driving or operating heavy machinery, if you just go take 20 deep big breaths through the mouth, in and out, not only will that part your throat, sure, get dry throat, but watch what happens to you, right? Now, you will notice, even after I did it like 2 or 3 times, my pulse starts increasing. When you breathe through the mouth some or all of the time, you're activating your sympathetic or fight or flight nervous system, right? And that obviously, that raises your pulse. It causes, cortisol and these sympathetic hormones and messengers, and epinephrine or adrenaline, cortisol. These get released, and now you've also lowered your carbon dioxide levels. Now you're actually, ironically, breathing more means you're less oxygenated. The converse, how do you teach someone, or how do you get someone who's hyperventilating or having a panic attack? How do you get them to calm the heck down? You give them a paper bag, for example, and they start breathing into the paper bag. What are they doing? They're breathing in their own carbon dioxide. So now they're getting the carbon dioxide in the blood back up. That allows them to normalize all these blood pH and all this other cool stuff. So what's another way to get someone to calm down? You just breathe through the nose slowly, and you just expand your tummy, and gently, slow breaths. So that's the optimal way to breathe. Breathing through the nose slowly and gently. And people that have trouble with mouth breathing at night, by the way, I should say I studied breathing with one of the foremost experts on breathing in the world, Patrick McKeown. If you want, Brandon, I can connect you with him.
I'd be honored.
Let me make a note of it, bro. He is awesome, bro. I studied for 8 days with him in Ireland, went to his house where his clinic is. He's got this amazing sort of practitioner community all around the world. And he does this, he's helped people with not just asthma and all these kind of breathing related disorders and obstructive sleep apneas and all sorts of things, snoring. But also now he works with sports people like SWAT team guys in California, just all sorts of amazing people, athletes, like I said. So this is where I learned all this stuff from. He's written like 8 or 10 books at this point. And I've had him on my podcast, and another one of his sort of proteges, I want to say, one of his great students. So this is the optimal way to breathe. Oh yeah. So what I was saying is, so folks that I learned this from him, and I do this every night, by the way. Folks that breathe through the mouth at night, they will wake up with a dry mouth. They will not be as refreshed, and there's a number of other deleterious effects. So what we do is like. What I do is I tape my mouth with some 3M micropore tape, inch wide. I just put a strip of tape on my mouth, so that forces me to breathe nasally throughout the night. And the reason for that is just my lower lip is very, very short. It doesn't, my mouth just opens up naturally. So, but most folks that have tried this, it's a game changer. Just the way, like even the first night they do it, they just sleep so much better. Because think about it, imagine for 8 hours, if you mouth breathe somewhere all of the time for 8 hours, and it messes with your blood pH and it's activating your sympathetic fight or flight nervous system. Like you have to be in a parasympathetic state in order to sleep well, to be rest and digest state. So that's a little technique, little pro tip there. But yeah, so it's another one of those things where we could go on and on, but let's leave it there. Folks can look up Patrick McKeown, the Buteyko Clinic. There's a lot of resources if you have any sort of breathing stuff. And just to add, the reason it's important for kids to teach them nasal breathing from an early age is when your mouth is open all the time, your tongue is sort of like, it's compressed. When you close your mouth and the tongue is at the top of sort of your palate, it's more splayed out laterally to the sides, and that pushes your teeth out to the sides, and that actually in small kids it sort of creates a wide jaw, so it creates the right environment for facial and jaw development, and basically kids that mouth breathe will have a higher chance of having crooked teeth because of the jaw sort of being more sort of constricted and long and narrow. So this is important. There's some very good research that actually shows that kids with sleep disordered breathing at the age of 3, I think it was, have a much higher chance of having special education needs by the time they're 8 years old. So, kids with ADHD, etc., there's a lot of that can be traced back to, or at least exacerbated by, mouth breathing, right? So breathing right is we've forgotten this amazing art of breathing right. You have to breathe slow, small breaths. I mean, there's still deep breath because you're feeling, you're using your diaphragm, but it's like this slow breath. It's quite a beautiful thing to see. I think it was Lao Tzu or something like that said that the perfect man or the perfect warrior I'm just paraphrasing, their breathing is imperceptible. So if you can hear you're breathing too fast or too much, if another person can notice that you're breathing, you're probably still breathing not optimally. You have to go to the state where you can barely perceive yourself breathing. So no noise, like you can't actually feel noise. You can barely see any movement in the person's sort of, chest, or like the belly just very slowly and gradually expands and contracts. So it's this kind of thing. But we can put a cork in that one for a while. The other important things is obviously food and water, and we don't have to belabor this point. People should know organic, ancestrally sort of focused food. So if it was there 200, if your grandmother ate it or your granddad ate it, probably you can eat it. 200 years ago, what food was available? What food was available for your ancestors for the longest time? These are the foods that your body is most adapted to eat, most likely. Obviously, water, reverse osmosis, distilled water, this kind of stuff, super important. Another thing that people often forget is the shower filter, which I already mentioned. But also the air filter, the air purifier. I always like to mention this to people because from my research into the toxins and all this stuff, a lot of things like plasticizers, flame retardants, phthalates, things in plastics and mostly plastics really. A lot of these things actually get carried around your home by dust. So if you have a lot of you have a dust situation, it's not just the dust that can mess with you. It's what the dust is carrying that is important to filter. That's why these air purifiers, they're $100. Get one for your kids' room, for your master bedroom, and for your main living spaces like your office, your living room. This is super important. So these are the basics, and we can always, of course, depending on what direction you want to take it, we can always elaborate on other ways to stay healthier, get healthier.
Yeah, I love it because you make us paranoid as shit from all the shit like just floating around in the air now. And now I'm just going to process out how we do have an air purifier. And now I just can't stop thinking about going and turning it on. But anyway, you have all these wonderful actionable things, but it's just about being mindful, set it and forget it and move on, because there's early things in this, like your osmosis filter, and then you just set it to change those things out and then you're good to go. But it's like you said, just actionable things that you can put into place, just as like the wish unit here. We're throwing coherent spaces. We're taking all of the ions in the air and changing them. So as well, you can do this with the dust floating around in your house, even mitigate that, but also take the plastics floating around on that. It's things you don't even think about, Christian. So thanks a lot, buddy. But you have all of this stuff, and your website is a phenomenal resource. So all of this stuff is linked up, the water filters, everything like that. So all of it's going to be linked. I did want to come back to epigenetics with you. This idea that things that happened before us affect us now in a way that we cannot do anything about. Now, Dr. Bruce H. Lipton, who I bring up all the time on the show, talks about this at length, about this epigenetic thing, about is it that our genetics predetermine our health, our ideals, our mindset, and even our success or non-success, right? So what are your thoughts on that? I just want to add to this as well that I've heard of people having challenges in life and they were brought, either regressed somehow or got into the Akashic records or somehow intuitively guided to locate the source of their disease in their body now was when they were in the womb with their mom, and their dad and her were like fighting all the time, or like he beat her or something like that. And so there's a big challenge later on that's manifested in this baby that had nothing to do with the situation. Ideally we could take it as far up woo-woo as you want. But that's kind of the question, man, the epigenetic question, as well as the effect that something in the womb has on a baby later on.
Yeah, bro, like this is such an awesome question, such a deep topic as well. Like at the moment, whenever I'm not working on like this course that I'm working on at the moment, I'm up to my gills in studies on genetics and this kind of stuff. And man, like where to even begin? So absolutely, things that happen in the womb affect the child for possibly sometimes for life. Just a simple example, it's called something called maternal immune activation. This, when the mother's immune system is activated during pregnancy, this the placenta is not a barrier. It's permeable to many molecules. So a lot of immune molecules, cytokines and messengers and so on, they can get through the placenta and likewise from the fetus out into the mom. And this basically creates the foundations of the immune system of the child. And that has itself, it literally, this turns off certain genes on and off. And the mother's nutrition, right? So for example, certain B vitamins, folate, for example, it's used in, some of them are used in creating DNA, like synthesizing the substrates for DNA, purines, pyrimidines, nucleosides, nucleotides, all this stuff. So the nutritional status affects us obviously from an epigenetic standpoint. So we have this certain set. Let's just kind of start at the beginning. We have this certain set of genes, and some of us have gene variants called SNPs, single SNP SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. So these are basically where a section of the gene is slightly different. So there's a couple of variants. For example, there's a famous gene MTHFR, methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase gene, and I have what's known as the most serious SNP of that, where the enzyme that the gene codes for works at like 50% efficiency, and that has to do with folate metabolism. Now, what that can do, just having that one gene itself, you have this whole cycle of enzymes that are coded for by genes. So that's for me is a vulnerability. So if you have like a number of these, which all of us have certain things that are, we could say, are vulnerabilities to something, not necessarily that you will get triggered. It's all got to do with, epigenetics again, lifestyle factors, certain foods and nutrients turn certain genes on and off, and so on and so forth. So if left unchecked, if I didn't know that, if left unchecked, this genetic variation can lead to a homocysteine to build up. Now, homocysteine, high levels of homocysteine is associated with atherosclerosis, depression, pregnancy loss, right? And a number of other things. And these things run in my family. Coincidence? I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I study this stuff, the more I don't think so. The more I think these things that run in my family are because certain variations in our our genetic makeup that create this predisposition. So what do I do? Well, I look at the research or a subset of it, because there's been thousands of studies on this particular gene alone. What do you do about it? So, for example, in my case, for the MTHFR gene, I take creatine that reduces some of the demands on the methylation system, which is what this gene is a part of. I take trimethylglycine, which can lower homocysteine. I take the right types of methylated B vitamins, a high-quality B vitamin complex. And so this is one gene. So, for example, if we run a genetic panel, and you get like 70 genes like that are well researched, well studied, we can look at a person's genotype for their specific vulnerabilities and say, okay, for example, just another example for myself, I have 2 detoxification genes that are completely missing from my genome. Some people have them, some people don't. Not sure why, but I don't have those 2, which means that the other detoxification enzyme genes, the enzymes that get coded for by those genes, they have to work harder. And one way to upregulate those detoxification enzymes is cruciferous vegetables. And this starts to get very interesting now, bro, about food preferences and eating instinctively. I'll give you another example. This blew my mind. So there's a certain gene called COMT, catechol-O methyltransferase. And this one, it's involved in quite a lot of things, including estrogen metabolism. It breaks down things like dopamine and catechol, norepinephrine catechols they're called. So my gene works normal. I have no polymorphisms in it. But what that can do is it can, now the enzyme is expressed well, there's a lot of it and it's working well. That means you break down dopamine too fast, low dopamine levels. What can that lead to? It can lead to addictive behaviors, thrill seeking, adrenaline seeking. And I definitely have an addictive personality from an early age. Now, interesting thing, my wife, she has a variation of the gene where that enzyme actually works slower. And apparently quercetin, which is found in onions, can slow that gene down even more. But my detoxification genes, because I have those deletions and some other polymorphisms, it's in my report, it said that eating cruciferous vegetables and onions and garlic upregulates those genes so they work better. Now, I'm a massive onion lover in stews, soups, salads, and just anything I cook, I love to slap as much onion in there. My wife, on the other hand, is always like either scooping it out of her plate or is like, don't put so much onion, always, bro. So in her case, the quercetin in the onion is slowing her gene down, which is already, the enzyme is already slow because the gene is expressed, it has a polymorphism. In my case, it's so fast that the onions are slowing me down. So I seem to be not addicted to onions, but like craving onions. Could it be an instinctual thing? And when you start unraveling the layers here, it's absolutely mind-blowing. Now I have some files with research printed, like some thick ass ring binders with research. So I'm only like, I believe I'm only like scratching the surface with my research, but there is so much to be said about the foods that we take in and how they're affecting our the ways our genes are expressed. I think let me stop there in case you kind of have any further questions, because I kind of will go on forever and then forget what you even asked me.
No, it's an interesting point, and it's brilliant the way you put it up, because now I'm just curious about my code and just to see why, because I don't consider myself like a picky eater. It's just I don't. There's a lot of foods that I'm not a fan of, and just for different reasons, aversions, texture, all kinds of stuff. So maybe though it is maybe something to more geared to me genetically to be an aversion. Like I just don't want that. That's fascinating, man. I'm very interested to talk further about.
If you want, we can send the DNA kit. You can do a test if you want, or for your wife as well, whatever you want.
Dude, let's do this, because I'd be interested to reveal the results to the audience as well, to let them know that you facilitate this and that they can go to you for this.
I would, to be honest, I've been offering, because I started working with this lab. Now they're in Europe, and the lab only tests for the genes that you are paying for the report for. They don't do other research. That no fuckery involved. They destroy the sample after 3 months. So these are companies I love to work. So I would love to. I want to see if there's like some type of gene in there that we can upregulate in me to make me as fucking positive and awesome as you.
Well, we'll see. Maybe it's like and maybe that's the thing. And that was another question I had for you, because this better be an aligned ass company, because I will say this with all sovereignty and intent, that I do not submit for my bloodline being tracked. Because if they get in there and they find out like I'm some sort of, I don't know, super Arcturian or some shit that I don't even know about. You know what I mean? Like in Men in Black, when the chick was like the queen and she didn't even know it. Something like that. Then they'll come out and then the UFOs will come out. Maybe that's something that'll happen from all of this. I'm all about it though, either way. And I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to. My wife is big into the ancestry stuff. So back in like late 2018 or whatever, dude, we both gave our DNA to fucking 23andMe. So, I got over it. To be honest, I'm not happy about it to this day, but I don't think them having my DNA affects me, or it can they're powerless to do anything in my, okay, sure. Maybe when they colonize Mars, there'll be a bunch of Christian slaves building the fucking walls or whatever. I don't know. I don't care, bro.
Yeah, there's a bunch of secret space versions of us running around out there. Yeah. That's what this is. It's not for anything having to do with you now. They're just grabbing your shit to clone you and make you part of the Clone Wars on some other planet in some other dimension. That's awesome. Yeah. And of course, we say this in jest because I agree with you. Nothing outside of me has sovereignty over me. And so that's interesting, though, because I was going to ask about the 23andMe and what the difference was between this, but it sounds like you said it all with your tone there. So it sounds like you found the version that works.
I'll tell you, there's a slight difference with this lab. They only, like, this report is only like 60 or 70 genes. With 23andMe, they give a lot of data. So in my case, I could take a specific gene, like let's say one of these reports, they're on different reports, this company. Let's say a certain report has a gene that I don't have in like their standard report. I can go back to my 23andMe and find that gene and see what if I have a SNP or not, So they give you a lot more data. But there's companies that also do whole genome sequencing now that I would, I remember one Black Friday sale they were doing back when I was on Facebook 3-4 years ago, and for $200-$300 you can get your whole genome sequence. So if someone does want all the data, there's other companies that do it. But in what I think is all that data for now is not really necessary, because you want genes that have plenty of research backing the validity. So you want something that has clinical validity, because we don't want to just have correlative things. Oh, this one is associated with cancer, but how is it? Oh, okay, so they studied like 20,000 people, and like there's a weak correlation that we don't want to like induce paranoia with over analysis. You want specific things. So like I said, this MTHFR one, like it's definitely associated with certain, certain pregnancy outcomes, atherosclerosis, depression, and like these are like very actionable things that you can do stuff about with diet, nutrition, and lifestyle. So I feel like these reports, like they're one main report that I'll share with you. I think that is more than enough for most people. There's just fun fact. We're just talking about certain people have certain aversions for foods and certain cravings and stuff. There's actually a gene, I haven't looked into it too deeply yet, but about how you taste bitter things. So in certain people, you're like a sort of, you taste bitter in foods, you're more sensitive to it, and you can be less sensitive. So this is one of those sort of survival mechanisms. So like obviously a lot of poisonous things in nature are bitter. So the quicker you can taste something is bitter, the faster you can spit it out or
survive. Yeah.
So there's
the people who taste cilantro like soap. Like my wife and I love cilantro. We make street tacos and shit all the time. We love it. Put it in salsa and all that. My sister-in-law though, same vagina, came out of the same mom, and she thinks that cilantro tastes like soap, and so therefore just doesn't care for it and has an aversion to it.
Wow.
It is interesting. What a fascinating place, dude. And the work you're doing is incredible, man. And so again, all the ways to find him located down below. Before we wrap here, I wanted to ask you about the silliest conspiracy theory, because you go deep into all this kind of stuff. And I really wanted to make sure that we featured your work. Plus, you're going to be back to talk about all kinds of shit, oodles of time. So in the meantime, though, I wanted to kind of dive into what you think just the silliest conspiracy theory is. Just one that you find just absolutely silly and ridiculous.
Silly as I don't think it's true, or I think it's very implausible, or that silly. In what way silly?
Yeah, give me a little of all of it, actually, because there are some that are really silly that you could see as not being true, and that's why they're silly, or you could see them being so true because they're so ridiculous. Like for instance, the Richard Branson thing in I want to say it was late 80s, early 90s. He created a hot air balloon that was shaped like a UFO, and then he hired a little person to get inside of it in an alien outfit. And then whenever it flew over and landed, so a bunch of people reported this UFO, and then it landed, and this guy hopped out dressed as an alien, which lucky he didn't get shot or something like this. I don't think it was really thought through, but that's a silly ass, conspiracy theory type thing to do,
Yeah. So yesterday I interviewed the dude, Howdy Mikoski, and I'm not saying I think his theory is silly. If I have him on my podcast, I definitely have thought a lot about from a philosophical standpoint, but I think it's quite an outrageous theory, is the one that we are here, basically our souls are being tricked into reincarnating, and this is like some type of the Gnostic sort of demiurge here. I think this one not necessarily it's silly, but it's like a lot of things that I've tried to debunk, and I come to think that, okay, now this must be true because I cannot debunk it, or I'm giving it some credibility. So this one, it's not that it's keeping me up at night, but I've been thinking a lot of, could it be that maybe this is not like we all want to think it's a little bit of a new age airy fairy sort of thing. It's a school when we come here and we're incarnating but like if your soul is a powerful being, why do you need to be here? My personal sort of thought is, if you were like a godlike being, how do you learn and grow and develop? And my sort of argument is, well, you limit yourself in some type of form.
Yeah.
If you're an expansive, limitless being, you put yourself in a physical form with limitations, and now you make yourself forget, and then you see what it's like to be limited, to have limitations, to not be infinite, to have pain. And so that's kind of I guess the story I tell myself to continue, because I do sort of believe, I definitely believe that it's almost like a religious belief. I don't have necessarily evidence to prove it, that we this is for our benefit, this is for our own good, and the fact that there is pain and suffering is it's just a side of the same coin. This is a duality that we are in. So that's one. Silly. Like, I think this 5D ascension stuff is absolute horse shit, bro. Like, I got one dude that sends me like this weekly report and literally every fucking week it's the cabal is about to be defeated, a new world, a new monetary system, the quantum financial system. And it's like every weekend, like I just for shits and giggles, I went back a year into it, and it was the same sort of thing with just different details. It's like, yeah, the cabal are close to getting defeated, and it's like, I don't know, bro. To be honest, I don't believe in any of these Anunnakis and that we were seeded by aliens here. I personally don't even believe that this reality is actually a physical reality. I don't believe we are physical beings. I'm more of the sort of belief that we are somewhere like in the North Pole, let's say, Hyperborea, and we are there in our whatever our true self is. We are now projecting ourselves here into like this grand theater or whatever you want to call it, and we are almost having like a dream. This is the dream, and then when you die, you basically become, or you go back to who you are. This is kind of where I'm at anyway. What's your any sort of, did that sort of answer your question? Or
No, it totally did. And it's a great point. I love hearing people's perspectives on this stuff. And it's interesting to hear it through, like I said, just different perspectives. And so what you're talking about here, the Archon soul trap, is sort of what this thing's been called. I've been thinking a lot about this lately. It's just synchronistic that you bring it up, of course. And so one of the things with this is the things like the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians and all of those things. I think they're fun and awesome and badass. Now, I don't write them out as absolute experiences that these people, whoever they are having. And so what I will say to this is, like you said, this being more of a projected reality in any way that we want it to be, there are a lot of stories that people experience here, and they are very, very true for them, but it's not consensus reality true, right? But what's interesting about it is the wisdom and the fractality that seems to be in all of these different experiences can be ubiquitous, in a sense, meaning ubiquitously experienced in different subjective ways. So let's take like the psychedelic experience, near-death experience, anything like that. There are artifacts, I feel, of a simulated reality that we're in, that we're participating in, to where, like you said, a fractalized version of us is having that experience because for them, they need to have it in that way, articulate it in that way to get them to the next level of understanding. Just like a teacher that's able to explain a math problem 10 different ways to get those kids to the same answer, but it was through 10 different paths, filtered through 10 different perspectives and things like that. A real tailored experience, if you will. And so that's something that I find fascinating. Now, to this way of saying like 5D ascension and all of that, perhaps there is not a reason to this game, but maybe there's sort of an objective, beyond learning and growing. Maybe the learning and growing leads us to not only the learning and growing, but a yes and of us sort of discovering that we are playing a game and that we're all one thing, and that the discovery of that through conversations and through people being visited by portions of themselves that then told them that they're the Anunnaki, and then get us into Sitchin's work and get us into really questioning. I think that's what it's really all about, is opening critical thinking as far as it can go. And we do that with the possibilities and just what people find are possible. So whether you find validity in the fact that it exists or not, you're still able to sort of cognitively step into the world with that person and say, you know what, on a planetary system, if there are, the Fermi paradox and all that, if there are all these other creatures, then perhaps one could have come here. And the fact that it's possible, that's it. The fact that you can hold a possibility as a potentiality and not rule it out. Now, what's beautiful about all of these things, our perception, the Anunnaki, simulated, all of these are not provable in a sense, but also not falsifiable. So you find yourself in this beautiful valley of potentiality. And so that's where I'm at with it, man. But this Archon Soul Trip I have been thinking about. And like you, I get to this point with it where I'm like, well, either we're all powerful or we're all not. But also I'm not to the point to where I'm limited in my thinking that my understanding extends beyond this world, or stops at this world rather. Let's say that this life, right? And we end in this life and we die. And maybe there's something after this. Perhaps that's just a chapter 2 that builds on what you learned in chapter 1, but from a completely different like dimension and standpoint. Now there's like triality instead of duality. And then you basically take this and build into the next one. Like, who the fuck knows, right? But again, with it, it does seem like I feel that this place is a growing environment of sorts, just simply because of our perspective of time, that we experience time, which just gives us change over duration, right? So this is an interesting thing to me, but I love what you said. And as far as, like I said, calling out the validity on, yes, this is what's happening as far as 5D ascension, or this particular alien coming down and saying this thing to this person, like those things I don't put the B word in as far as believe, but I do believe that these people had a very serious and significant experience that changed them in a certain way that was very tailored to them. And I believe in the possibility of that existing for all of us. So therefore, I can't rule any of it out. You know what I mean?
I love that, bro. That is truly an expansive freaking worldview, and I love this. That's why I love you. I have to, I have to say, one thing I kind of think I know for sure though, is we are, and I love this, bro. I love this so much. It gives me so much sort of security. Is we are all emanations of source. We are thoughts in the mind of the creator. Now, how far removed are we from the creator? How many layers? Well, it's hard to say. It seems like, to me, it seems like we are very much in the grand scheme of things, very, very much a tiny little speck. Because if the all is infinite, well, there you go. Like literally, the mind can the reason I feel like we're so small compared to the grand scheme of things is if we cannot comprehend this. Like I haven't talked about this on the record, but I had one experience on acid, bro, where it was so beautiful. Like I could almost see like the expansion of like worlds and universes and how it's literally like a fractal that can go infinite, right? And at that point, this beauty, and I saw the beautiful organization of it all, and it was so beautiful, and it got so overwhelming. I was so overwhelmed by the beauty, bro. I was in bed and I jumped out of bed, and I basically I had an episode. My wife, I was like started saying I thought I was going crazy. Bro. And I was started apologizing to my wife. I thought I could call me an ambulance, call me. I asked, I need a shaman. I thought I need a shaman. Call me Chris. There's some guys that I interviewed that have worked with shamans in Peru, Matt Palmer, Mateo. They call Mateo, like find someone, I need help. I need a shaman to help me get me out of this. And it was really bad. And then I had all these like smudges and, there's agua, what do you call that? Agua de Florida. And I started like, I took the agua de Florida, and I just started spraying it on myself, hoping to like whatever. And it's based in alcohol, it's agua de Florida. It's like perfume, and I feel like maybe the alcohol, because like benzodiazepine is like a trip killer, but alcohol kind of does the same thing, as it has to do with whatever the GABA receptor. I don't remember the science behind it, but I did that. It's kind of like started taking me down, but it was so it was so overwhelming that at that point I realized that, it's beautiful. That is beautiful, but in our human state, we are here for a reason in the human state. And in this human state, we are not ready to experience that, whatever that expansiveness is. And maybe when we die, or maybe it's like what you were saying when you were on my podcast, you have to, success and all this manifestation stuff has to happen in stages, because if it happens tomorrow, you don't have your nervous system, you don't have the capacity to embody that yet. So I feel like maybe this is God's game, where each little speck that he throws out into the infinity, it's like a boomerang that will one day merge back to source. And on the way back at this incredible journey, and God is like, I'm gonna, and it's like again like infinity. If you can imagine the all splintering into like infinity pieces, and it's in each piece, and it's because it's infinite, it's seeing everything from the like each atom in the air and in everything is seeing all the other atoms from that perspective. And the omniscience of the all is seeing everything from every possible angle. So infinity times infinity angles, and it's like it's this amazing game it wants to play with itself, because it's the all, it can do whatever the fuck it wants. But if you start to like, this is probably a bad thing to start thinking about when you're on some entheogen, because you may indeed go kukura. So I think that's why the brain or the human mind is like, okay, I'm done here. I think it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, I'm not ready. So
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I really do. I've felt this in my own experience here about elation, about pure joy, about like how happy I'm able to be here. And I've talked about this. It's this thing about your nervous system, because our nervous systems, because of the conditioning, because of all of that good stuff, then it's been very trained to be very comfortable in a nervous situation. And so it's very interesting when you start pushing joy and elation and freedom, and you've shunned that nervousness and you've shunned your worthiness and imposter syndrome and all that. And you just sit with actual joy and elation and pure happiness for your sovereignty and who you are. That in itself is a shock to your nervous system, man. And so to what you said as well, these psychedelic experiences, sometimes they put you in that state where you're able to mentally handle it, but it's just almost too much. It's almost too much, and it's beautiful. And that's why when we come back for those experiences, we go, dude, the colors, I couldn't even explain it. Like, there's no colors around here that explain what we see over there. There's no amount of freedom and expansiveness and creativity and instant manifestation that we experience over there that we do here. So like you, it figures, in my mind, it figures that it's for a point, like that there's a reason that it's so governed. Yes, we have access to it. In the same way, though, like you said, maybe we're not supposed to, but what I think to that is we're not supposed to all at once, like you said. I feel that those things are here for us, just like elation, joy, our ability to heal and move forward, like the power that gives you from being able to write your own story. Those things, those are trips in themselves, and those are powerful emitters that get you more in tune to be able to handle that frequency, literally. And so this is what I feel that we're building our nervous systems up from, is the bottom of the expansive ability to perceive the lowest fear, scarcity, all of those things, only to say, okay, there's the bottom, and then here we go. What's that saying? Man's roots have to reach to hell before you can reach to heaven. And so it's about reaching this real stable, I feel, varied base for yourself, so that you can really experience the whole scope of what this reality, as far as duality and all of these things, have to offer, if that's what's going on. And then, like you said, afterwards, it's just over and you integrate. But like you said as well, maybe there is codes hidden within this, that maybe it is a goddamn Archon soul trap, dude. And when you die, you shouldn't go to the light. Your job is to turn around and look. And if you do that, you beat the game and everybody claps for you. Otherwise, you do get sort of in this loop, until you can figure it out. But it seems that there are many things here, if you want to look at it like that, as that would beat the game, or that would beat the simulation and open this thing up. And all that means is bringing us all back to singularity. And for enough of us, as far as a critical mass goes, to realize that it's a simulation and that it's a game and that we're all one. That's all it takes. And it's not even all of us. It's just a certain percentage.
Yeah. One of the sort of holes I kind of want to, like, again, I don't want to believe the demiurge and the sort of the Archon stuff. I don't want to believe it. But again, I am open-minded, I believe. But one of the sort of holes I want to poke in that sort of theory is, well, when you sleep, I don't know if you would agree with me here, but when you sleep, you feel like there is some type of base consciousness, right? You have some type of base awareness, right? So I feel like when you die, at the very least, it will be like that, right? At the very least. And maybe over time, as your senses leave you, that let's say your soul is contained in a body. I don't know if it's a physical thing, but let's say you are contained. So it's like you have this container, this box. When the senses and the body sort of dissipates, that consciousness now is unencumbered. And I feel like at that point, it's some type of potentiality. And if you are primordial consciousness, you're part of the base consciousness that animates everything, that gives, the entire the existence, that being is emanating from there. At that point, maybe you are now, a creator. Maybe you are a creator, and the fact that we are all here and we have a consensus reality, because we should not forget that we have consensus reality. I don't subscribe to solipsism, that you create the world and like if I die you're all gone, and that's kind of a little bit egotistical, I think satanic even. But if you are that sort of divine spark, as Howdy he says, I think maybe a bunch of us divine sparks organized into the earth. So it's like how a cloud forms. So we now once you have a mass of something like a snowball, it goes bigger as it rolls down the hill. So maybe these sparks are kind of the self-organizing units of consciousness that decided to create this realm, this world here, and we're here, and maybe the earth is like, let's say, infinity minus 1,000 years old, and then it will live for another infinity minus 1,000 years, and it will dissipate, and these sparks of consciousness, or when they transmute, maybe they go to other dimensions, other worlds, and create other worlds. So maybe we are like atoms on a much grander scheme of things. There are sparks of consciousness or divine sparks, and we like either self-organizing, or there's other larger entities or whatever. I definitely can't rule that out, that they're organizing us into place. It's like when you see a school of fish suddenly change speed, it could be that there's definitely like, and I don't want to call them entities controlling us, but we cannot say for sure that it's a negative thing, because there's still good parts to life. If it was just a negative thing, it would be like the Matrix. We're just getting, constant fear, constant hell, and constant extraction of illusion energy. But I really, really think that we know so little, again, with our limited human senses, that anything is possible. And this is where I'm at my wit's end. This kind of where I can't really, I don't know much. This is why I continue to study these things and think about them.
You know a ton, man. And really what it is in my mind, like a remembering. And really that's what these conversations are. And so it's about all of this in my mind also is not about solving it. It's just sort of realizing that there's something bigger going on. And that's really
revel in the mystery.
Yeah. And enjoy the shit out and play, really. But there's a lot of this stuff I feel can be taken too goddamn seriously. This place is fun and it's meant to be played in. And that's honestly, if you're talking manifestation, if you're a practicer of that, your joy is directly related to your speed of manifestation. That's directly related. That's why kids are just boom, boom, boom. And just really tapped in, is because they're not encumbered, as you said, I love that word, by some sort of belief system that they're not capable of doing so. Then they don't second guess and backtrack and think about the responsibilities and all that. There's none of that. It's unencumbered from any of those things. This is why it becomes more challenging, I suppose, but you also have more rational ways of going about your healing, to be able to navigate it a little bit better. Before, you don't need as much healing because you're just open and you can just do. But again, in that place of vulnerability also is where you're taken advantage of and create a lot of trauma. And so this is where we find ourselves. It's just an interesting, beautiful symphony that is this life, this creation, this realm, this whatever the fuck this is. And dude, I'm grateful that you're here with us. So all the ways, of course, to find you are going to be located down in the show notes, my friend. We're going to do this a bajillion more times, if that's cool with you. I believe that's a unit of measurement. And we will make sure we get all those in. And
sure.
But just Christian Yordanov, I can't thank you enough, man. Amazing.
Brandon, thanks so much, bro. What an honor. Oh, that's all I can say. What an honor, privilege, pleasure to know you and, to spend time with you, having conversations like this, man. Love you. Love you, brother. Love you, brother. Love you.